Hi, Gabby. Hope you are feeling a lot better. I think you're back at cross country, so hopefully that means you are up and running again. Literally. Didn't even plan that. I hope you're having a great week, and I'm excited to see you again next week. So I got your videos last night. I haven't gotten your theory, so if you remember from our last lesson, we had said we were going to go on to do page 8 for the theory book. So I won't give you another page for this week. Let's just go ahead and we'll take a look at that when you come in next week, and then we'll move on from there. I don't want us to get bogged down with a bunch of theory to check all in one lesson. We also have our sight reading, which you weren't supposed to send me a video of. I just want to remind you about that so that you're including it in your practice still. Remember, we do want to include one exercise roughly for each day that you practice. Ideally, it's something you want to be doing basically every day, but I understand if you're not able to logistically do a full practice session every day. So if that's the case, remember it really only takes, it shouldn't take more than about 5 or 6 minutes per exercise, because we're only going through each one 3 times, right? So most of the time is not actually in the playing, it's in the observing and in the mental preparation and looking for patterns and all that kind of thing. So sorry, I don't know why I'm out of breath. Started talking and just like got really in my head. Anyway, that's fun. So the sight reading, yes. Okay, so as much as you can, try and do 1 exercise per day, but definitely do 1 each day that you are practicing. Just keep labeling each exercise with the date of the day that you do them. You can do it at the beginning of your lesson, oh my gosh, beginning of your practice session, or at the end, or use it as a break in the middle of stuff. There's really no, rules or anything that go along with that. It's just whatever your preference is. Just try and get a little bit in each day so that we can get that comfort level built up with having to read new music by just tackling a little bit each practice day. Let's see, our interval game, obviously we'll do that the next time that you are back here. Don't have to worry about that. So we'll go on to our D natural minor scale. So I did want you to double check your right hand fingering. I watched it a couple times and I couldn't totally tell for sure what your right hand was doing, but it didn't seem quite like we were crossing over or under in all the right spots. And I could be wrong about that. Like I said, I watched it a couple times, I still couldn't really tell. So I do want to just remind you real quick about the right hand fingering. What we'll do is we'll keep the natural minor scale, and then I'm also going to give you the harmonic minor scale. Remember, harmonic minor, the only difference is that we raise the 7th note of the scale by a half step. So let me see if I can do, if I tilt it, will it collapse? That would be fun. Let's see. Okay, yeah, that looks good. So for the natural minor scale, let's see if I start here. I'll just start down here. Okay. So for right hand, you're starting with the 1, 2, 3, cross under on G, and then cross under on D, cross under on G again. That takes us all the way up. Coming down, we'll come down 5 fingers, 3 over on F, 4 over on C, and 3 over on F again. So again, there's every possibility that you may be doing it all correctly. Just wanted to throw that out there in case you were missing something. Your left hand looks perfect. So, and we did a great job putting the hands together. So I think that right hand fingering is the only thing to do a quick double check on this week. Just make sure that that's all locked in. For harmonic minor, all we're going to change is making our C natural a C sharp, which is kind of funny because it gives you that weird extra gap that's not a half or a whole step in the scale. It also kind of gives it that different tonality, which is very classic of harmonic minor. So harmonic minor for right hand will look like this. Same as natural minor, except here's my C sharp. B flat, C sharp, D. Same thing coming down, doesn't change. Okay, and then your left hand, can you see my hand here? Oh, perfect, yes, okay. So left hand would be, again, same fingering, same basic structure, but now we're going to replace our C natural with that C sharp here. So left hand looks like this. C sharp, 4 over on E. There's a C sharp again. Takes a little getting used to it first, but that's the only to change. So once you're comfortable with that, you should be good to go. So we'll go ahead and do both natural minor and harmonic minor. Harmonic minor, you can start one hand at a time if you prefer, and then put hands together. Or you can just jump into it hands together if you're feeling pretty solid with the fingering and the scale itself. Either way, up to you. Which brings us to our waltz. Lots of minor things going on here this week. So our waltz is looking pretty darn good. I'm gonna model some stuff for you, so I'm gonna stay in my little hunched position here. So with, let's see, what we had talked about before was adding pedal to the first 3 lines, right? Which we did beautifully, and it sounded like you have pedal on the last line too, so very nice job there. But the pedal didn't throw anything off. It looks like our accuracy is really improving. The left hand is looking really comfortable with all those jumps, so very nice job there. The other thing we had talked about was getting the left hand on the 4th line comfortable at 80 BPM, right? So I don't know, normally I would ask you how much you've been trying it with the metronome and how fast you think you had it comfortable, but obviously I'm just talking to myself right now, so I can't ask you that. But your left hand is looking pretty good on that last line too. I really like how careful you're being with making sure you get the right notes. I feel like that can sometimes be a little bit of a challenge for you, is wanting to go to wherever your hands remember, even if it's not necessarily correct. I love how much time you're taking to make sure that you're going to all the right notes on that last line. That is a really, really strong practice skill, and it's hard to kind of overwrite with that when you're so used to just kind of blasting through it, and then if you hear something that's not quite right, I better go back and fix that, right? It's actually a lot harder to make sure you take your time with making sure you have all the right notes, and it's then a lot easier to speed it up afterwards, right? So last line is looking really good. There's a couple little areas I want to draw your attention to, just to make sure, again, it could have been just a fluke, you know, on the one recording that you sent me, but just to make sure that we're in fact getting that right in your practice. There were a couple places we were just slightly off. So the first place is measure 7. So it's really like the end of this second line, right? Measure 7 and 8. So on measure 7, remember we have the 2 different chords there, right? It kind of breaks the pattern there. So I think the first chord, it may have still been that F sharp 7 chord. I'm not entirely sure exactly what it was, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't the B minor chord. So just keep an eye out for that. Make sure that those 2 in measure 7 are different from each other. And then on measure 8, it looked like we were kind of having a little bit of trouble with the timing, bringing both your hands together at the end of that measure. We ended up with an extra left-hand chord. So when you get to, let's see, measure 7 is... measure 8. So when you get to measure 8, we start with the B's together. 1, 2, and 3, and. So just keep an eye out for that. Make sure that you're not wanting to put extra notes into that space. Your right hand, I think, will come in a little bit sooner maybe than you expect it to. So if you need to write out the counts, that's fine. If you need to kind of draw ticks to help you understand when you're going through it and actually playing it, which piece happens at which time, that's totally fine. Whatever makes sense to you, just keep an eye out for that section as well. Lines 1 and 3 look fabulous. Let's see. And the last spot was just measure 16. Last measure, last note. So this is one part that we've definitely been having a trickier time with. And I think we may need to look at, when you come in next week, what you have written in there. I think that might actually still be throwing you off. I remember something about that the last time I saw you. But we want to make sure your notes to yourself are not what's actually getting in the way there of the reading. So remember, your last 3 notes for measure 16 are D, E, and E sharp, which is the same as F natural, right? And our thumb is going to cross under there, because what you're going to next, we really need to have the thumb here, so that way we're set up for this section, right? Otherwise, we end up with a really much more awkward cross, and we don't want that. It'll make your life much easier if we can get used to having that thumb on the F natural. So if you need to write F natural, if you need to write E sharp, if you need to circle it, if you need to draw arrows or symbols or whatever works for you, just make sure that anything you have written in there is not contributing to remembering the wrong note. I believe you played an F sharp with the fourth finger there for your last note, which sounds like it makes sense, but it will give us problems later because it is really the E sharp and not the F sharp there. Okay. So I believe that's about everything. What I'd like to do when you come in next week is we'll go on a little bit. We will start taking a look at the next section of the piece because you've done such a great job putting the rest of it together. Oh my gosh, this is so uncomfortable. I know I'm pretty much done here. Okay, there we go. So I believe that is everything. So we've got the theory page, the sight reading, the not melodic, it's the only one we're not doing, natural and harmonic minor scales, and then our waltz. Really nice job on everything overall, especially with being sick and not feeling great and just having to take some time off. You've done a really good job keeping up with it, so good for you. And I will see you next week. If you have any questions between now and then, just shoot me a text and let me know. All right, see you then.